What's up, everyone? It's been, I would say,
a
while since we posted anything. But we're back with some more videos, and today we're talking about something that's a little bit important, I would say. And
I'll say
sirens.
A lot of important.
Yeah. Also, if you hear sirens, there's sirens.
It's a natural part of life.
Yep.
As much as it sucks.
Yeah. That's not. Okay, but anyways, we're talking about something important, or at least we think is very important when it comes to relationships, life. And when I mean relationships, not just, romantic partners, but also friends and family and all that stuff, because it's something we think is really such a critical thing, really, really important skill to have, but it's also super difficult. Right?
Yeah.
And what might that be?
It is communication.
What is communication?
Communication means a lot of things. And I think that we have 3 tips today to share with y'all in terms of what we think communication looks like. Because like my brother said, it is truly, truly like such a crucial part to having healthy relationships, right? Like, even if you're asexual, aromantic, it's like, and you might not have that romantic relationship with people, but even within platonic relationships, like, honest, transparent, like, communication that comes from all sides of a relationship is so, so important. And this kind of ties in with boundaries. Check that video out if you haven't already. But this goes really deep into just what we think are the keys in important things that you should do when you're communicating with people. So my one tip is, like I said before, being transparent and honest with how you speak to others, right? And I think a lot of the times, and I'm learning this in a very interesting class about sustainable well-being, is that when you're being honest with someone, it's not about, hey, like, I'm going to tell you, I'm be honest with you. You suck.
All right.
Like,
okay.
You're this, and that. Like, it's not about being honest about what you think about other people, right? Like, we only have what we know about ourselves, is what my professor is teaching me, right? And I feel like, oh my God, that's such a simple thing to think about. But it truly is just about you telling other people how you're feeling. I think when stuff happens, when conflict happens, a lot of the time what we do is be angry, right? Like, we are angry, we're usually hurt, we're like frustrated, so we want to like attack the other person.
Yeah.
We want to be like, I need to be honest now, I need to be direct, I can't have people stepping on me, stuff like that. But that's not gonna help. That's not communicating honestly or transparently. The only thing that we can do that is beneficial to whatever relationship is say what you think, as in what personally I feel. That's all I know, right? And it comes across like, hey, I feel hurt, right? It's the whole I statements thing that you hear all the time. It's like, I feel hurt, and when this happened, I felt this certain way, and I hope we can talk about it.
Yeah.
I hope that we can talk about it, sit down, and let me explain why I feel this certain way, and what is frustrating to me, right? So like digging into the reason as to why that bothered you, right?
Yeah.
Because like when people say like, I'm just like, when I don't do dishes. Like you could be like, you lazy. It's like, I don't like it when you but very much so, like, you've always come across me like, hey, like, I see that you're busy. Like, a lot of times this makes it so that, I'm a little late to like this, or like I don't have the things that are ready for me, like dishes and plates that I can use. So like, can we see like what compromise we can make, right?
Yeah.
So that's part of like honest like communication, talking about you, how you feel, your own experiences. Yeah.
I do want to add, you did bring up a good point where when you're upset, irritated, frustrated about anything, especially when you talk to someone who you might have like a disagreement with, and in most cases, it is when they make you feel uncomfortable or anything like that. You do tend to say really irrational things, right?
Yeah.
We've heard all our parents. We've heard people angry. They say really hurtful things. They do really dumb things like attack people, lash out physically, verbally, whatever, right? That does put a strain on the relationship too, because yeah, you're telling them how you're feeling, but it's not, or in my mind, it's not a very productive way of doing so.
Yeah.
Right? Just like when you said the example of the dishes, right? I could, if I'm honest and I say it, as at the time that I'm upset, right? If I were to go up to you and tell you, hey, this is how I'm feeling, it's not going to be as nice, right? And if I don't say it as nicely, depending on the person, they might also be upset, right? For you, you're a lot more patient. You're not as, hot-tempered. So if I were to get a little upset, you still wouldn't really take much offense to it. But there are other people that might, right? So what I'm trying to say is, if you're upset and you still want to communicate with them, I would say take a step back, calm yourself, do something to release the energy, so you're calm, you're thinking clearly before you communicate, right? Because again, if you say something mean to them, everyone thinks really highly of themselves, right? If you attack them, they think that, well, obviously, if you're attacking them, they're probably going to think that you're attacking them. Even if you're not trying to directly, right? They're going to take offense to it, and that's going to cause more conflict, right? And for me, it's minimize conflict as much as possible. If I don't need to fight with someone, and it's such little things, I just won't, right? So that's what I want to bring up, because I do agree with everything you said, and it's just something I want to add. Because I do see a lot of people, even though they try to explain themselves, right, they still struggle because they yell at people, right? Our parents, most parents are like that. They want the best for the kids, but they're upset, either because they're working or they're tired or anything like that. They come home and I want my kids to do well because I want them to struggle. All right, I'm struggling. I'm trying to make ends meet, but I come home and I see our kids just lazy, right? Even though they don't know what happened, but they're tired, they're angry, and they don't understand that, how to communicate properly because they probably weren't taught to, right? So then they lash out, and then kids take offense to it because they think, oh, my parents don't care about me, or they're always bullying, or like they don't listen and stuff like that. Yeah, and that kind of ruins family relationships. So,
a quick tip that I learned in psych class is that when parents like come and discipline kids with anger, that's all the kids remember. They don't remember why the parents did it. They remember, oh, they hit me because they were angry. They yelled at me because they were angry. It's like that, especially with like parental relationships, like between parents and kids, it's so crucial. It's even more crucial as they're developing how they communicate with people, to have someone to reflect what is healthy communication, what is honest, open, and communication. So if any of y'all are parents,
maybe not, but it's just that
we're thinking about being parents, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to like create this toxic relationship if I have a kid. You know what I mean?
We don't want to pass on this generational trauma. Right? That's not beneficial for the next generation of people, right? So thank you, for telling us your tips.
And now
so I guess for me, it's at least the thing that I tell myself the most, and the thing that I try to work on the most, to have good communication between friends, family, whatever, and having good relationships, right? I did say that, so relationships is actively listening, right? I think that's very, very difficult because everyone likes to talk, right? Everyone wants to tell other people what they think, right? They want their idea across, right? And some people just don't. I don't know why they just talk a lot. Like, we all know someone who talks way too much, right? Whether it's the boring, like something super boring, or something super interesting, they just never stop talking, right? And that becomes an issue, especially if you try to be closer with someone, or as you're older and you guys discuss important things. It's very tough if only one person is taking over the conversation. Right? I think you could probably agree with this. School projects, any school projects.
Oh, group project?
Group projects, right? It's usually one person takes the lead, everyone else kind of follows. And there might be that one person who just doesn't do anything, right? Some people don't really want to participate because, we don't know what's going on in their lives, but they just don't. Some people might think, hey, other people aren't as good. Or some people might think they might not be doing stuff. Because I know some people who had really bad partners who didn't do anything, so they think in their mind, oh, I have to take over again. Right? And I think this is where actively listening comes in, because regardless of what past experience they had, the person who takes up the leadership role, most of the time when I was in a group project, it was never, this isn't complaining about people, right? But it's just they never really listened to other people. In their mind, they already had something that they think is good.
Yeah.
Whether your idea is good or not, they most likely won't take it, right? Because they already in their mind have that issue, or like that idea thought out, right? So why I think that's really important is because if you let other people speak their minds, then they feel respected. They feel like they're contributing. They feel like, hey, my voice is being heard. And I think everyone wants that. Everyone wants to feel it. Everyone is special, even though that sounds really cliche, blah, blah. But I don't want to say they want to feel important, right? Because everyone's important in their own way. But everyone wants to feel like they're doing something and they're accomplishing something. And if you kind of deny that, that doesn't really lead to good outcomes. And for friendship, it's the same thing. If you are having issues with your friend, you're telling them about that, being transparent, being honest, but they're not listening to you. That's really hard, right?
Yeah.
That relationship, I don't think, or at least for me, I wouldn't be able to handle that, because if you can't help you can't help assist me with my needs, I don't really want to spend time, trying to help you out, right? So that also goes along with, romantic relationships. I can't say anything, because no partner. But that's not the point. But it's just, even in romantic relationships, because you're closer with them, you're seeing them more often, you're talking to them more often, being actively listening is very important, because you're gonna deal with a lot more stuff, really, really life-changing events or life-changing experiences that you need to talk to them about it, right? And if they're not listening, you kind of either you take the back seat and maybe it ruins your life, or you guys just have a really bad relationship that'll also ruin your life. So,
yeah.
No. I guess just to recap, blabbing is actively listening. It's a very hard thing to do, right? But I feel like if you learn how to do it, it's really important. Oh, I should tell them how to do it, right? Or at least how I do it.
Yeah.
So the first thing is, let them finish their sentence. It is kind of hard. You kind of have to read the situation where if they're just constantly blabbing, you should tell them, hey, I need to say something, right? So kind of subtly put that in there.
That's a skill you learn, right?
Yeah.
Tact
Yeah.
and how we contribute to conversations and having a productive, meaningful conversation when you feel like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? But the general tip is just letting them finish. No matter how badly you want to say something, let them finish first. So that really takes a lot of energy, because one, you're trying to listen to them, right? But the other thing is, hey, I shouldn't say anything, right? And actively listening is, repeating what they're saying, I understand. Nodding, acknowledging that you got everything. Right? I think if this is kind of like a struggle, start with just limiting the amount of times you cut someone off. Right? No interruptions, anything like that. Let them finish. Right? Afterwards is when you start trying to actively participate and listen and tell them that, hey, I'm actually listening to you. Because interrupting, I feel, is the easiest thing to do to fix. But listening and understanding their conversation is a little bit harder because it takes more focus. So, yeah. That's my tip. I'm smiling under the mask.
Right. It's interesting, right, that to communicate properly, you don't end up not talking as much. Right? Or like the fact that if you want to have that meaningful conversation and try to understand the other side as much as you can so that you have a good like back and forth and you are both of you are communicating honestly, it's like you have to do the opposite, right? You have to listen. It's not just about you telling other people like what you feel. It's also if there's a conflict, hearing their side of it too, right?
Definitely.
And I think like that was a good point, right? When people interrupt, usually they stopped focusing on listening, right? Because they're like, oh, I have this thing to say, so I need to wait until they stop so I can say what I say. And then at that point, people don't listen anymore, right? So yeah, it's like, how do you make it so that your sole action that you want to do is to just listen to them? It's not to add your advice, add your like thoughts on it, but just for that moment when they are speaking, you're listening, and that is your purpose at that moment when you're having that conversation with them, right? So I that's a good tip. And trying not to butt in, because then as you do that, then you know it's like, okay, I should be listening. Like, what exactly are they telling me? And then mirroring that, like you said, like saying the same thing back to them, right? Like mirroring and summarizing so that they know that you know what's going on. Right? Yeah. Damn. Good way to put it.
So I guess it's kind of our two tips and our two advice kind of go hand in hand, right?
Yeah, definitely.
In a relationship, you can't be the one who's constantly taking the back seat, but you can't also be the one that's pulling the relationship. Like you can't be the one constantly driving. But you also can't be the one that's only sitting and never offering to drive on a road trip.
Yeah.
Whatever that feels like.
Yeah. Analogies.
Maybe, yeah.
I think that goes kind of to our last point, which, like, in general, the whole point of all of this, like, of the communicating properly, comes down to recognizing what a healthy relationship looks like. Right? That whole like equity bit, right? It's like when you are in that relationship, there's a certain amount of expectations for one another. Right? For like, I'm talking about two people, but 2+ people, however many people are in that relationship, right? It's like there's a certain amount of expectation that needs to be said and set, and it should be something that's healthy for you. Like, like that's the thing. It's like you shouldn't always be the one actively listening. Like I shouldn't be the only one actively listening all the time. Right, like you are not someone's therapist, right? Like it's like just so we have the importance of active listening doesn't mean like it's your job to always do that. Right? And the same thing with like direct communication. It's like you can set that standard for yourself, but what standard are you setting for the people that are around you? And I think that has to be reciprocal, right? Like it's to have a healthy relationship, like. If you're being honest, if you're putting this emotional work into making sure that you're communicating like yourself and your feelings and your needs, it's like I think it's okay to figure out what you can expect and see from the other person and where their energy lies and how they will reciprocate that back to you. So all of this just involves making sure that your relationships are healthy, that these people are also doing the same for you. That the people that you care about are also doing the same for you, because you wouldn't want to be like wasting time on people that are just like dragging down your energy, you know? Yeah.
I think a better analogy for all of this, like the equity thing, right? This isn't, romantic relationship, I don't really talk about that because I don't have. I can't say it, right? But it's for friendships, right? I have like a really good friend. I've known him for 5 years now, I would say. Why our relationship works out quite well. One good example is whenever we eat out, right? Let's say it's a fairly large bill, but it's not super large, and I covered the entire one this time. He's not gonna be like, oh shoot, he covered it, it's fine, right? Next time he wouldn't even wait to be like, oh, do you want me to get it? He'll be like, okay, you got last time, I'm gonna get this one, right? And that happens quite often. Like we kind of alternate. And if I offer and I buy him something, or I treat him out, or like I pay for our meal, then he would do the same, right? And that's kind of how I see friendships and probably romantic relationships, where it's not one person's always paying for something, right? If they are, maybe they pick up slack somewhere else, or they do more in other aspects, or they just split it evenly, stuff like that, right? And that's kind of like the balance that we're talking about. Actively listening but setting your boundaries, because you listen, but they also have to. And if that doesn't happen, you kind of reevaluate the relationship and either separate yourself from it, or see what you could do to either make it better, or separate yourself, right?
Yeah.
There's no other way to put it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's why it's so important to know that like it's okay to be selfish, right? And not in the terms that like only put yourself first, by like crushing other people, but it's like for yourself, this communication, that's what it's doing. It's you're communicating this for yourself, for what you want to put into the relationship, right? And if it's not serving you, like if this relationship is something that you like aren't finding like this sort of like fulfillment, and something that's like negatively weighing down on you, maybe you should reevaluate, Yeah. And I think that's just how life goes on. It's like that's why relationships stay, relationships don't, and it's the amount of work that each person puts in. And whether or not we talk about equality, it's not about equality, right? It's about communicating what is equitable between you both, right? Because in my relationship, I'm okay with paying all the time, right? But she also doesn't just go, yeah, like you pay for everything, that's expected all the time, right? But that's in our relationship. And every relationship is different, and you find your own healthy, objectively healthy sort of path. Yeah. But definitely those two like tips apply to it all, right? Because you won't know what is needed if you don't communicate. Don't be taken advantage of, but don't take advantage of other people. Even better. Easy analogy. Right. That's not analogy. That's actually, yeah. Tips. Yeah. Tips. Yeah. So, yeah, that's basically all I wanted to say. Yeah, and this is sibling advice. That's from our experiences. Yeah. Really, as people who, like, to be honest, like, I'm still a pretty awkward person. Yeah, same. I don't communicate with people often. I usually, like, just, like, take the back seat. Because I'm like, they can do whatever they want. And I will help them in whatever way I can. That's not how it works. You know, I need to communicate so that I'm showing that I want to be part of this relationship. Or I want to talk to them. Or I want to be there, So, yeah, lifelong learnings, I guess. Yeah, it is. After many, many years, this is how, where we got to, right? There's so much more for us to grow and learn more. So we're not perfect. We're also kind of actively listening. So. Yeah, that's why I remember when you cut me off. What? During this podcast, how many times I've cut you off. Oh, true. We're writing that down mentally. Like, oh, you cut me off 4 times. I'm going to communicate this to you. Yeah. I'm just kidding. So, yeah. Hopefully this was of help. We just think it's very important because we've seen so many times that we had failed relationships, and
messed up things or upset about things because we didn't communicate well enough. Right.
It really all came down to how well we communicated. Yep.
So hopefully we helped. Hopefully you all learned something. If there's any other tips you guys have for us, by all means, comment it, right?
Yeah.
We want to learn about this. We're trying to keep an open mind about this too. So
share your experiences, and we'll be open ears, actively listening to you all.
Share on social media or YouTube comments. All right. So thank you for listening or watching. Check our next video coming out next week.